Like to take this moment to invite all our kids for Hope Kids to be dismissed. You guys are going to have a good time today. The ambassadors are waiting to take you back there this morning. We'll miss you, but we'll see you after service today. All right, I'm 5 years into this, and I still have not had adults get up and leave, so I think it's a streak. I'm going to stick with it this morning. This has been it's been a heated week for our country, whether good or bad, wherever you fall, it is what it is. But this week, I think wasn't it Monday? Our new president went through the inauguration, was sworn into office, and he delivered his inauguration speech. And we're not going to get into politics this morning. If you had a chance to hear what he said, he did something that some would say was kind of unique, but for the most part, if you've listened to a lot of different leaders speak, he did something that's actually quite familiar, and we're used to seeing communicators do, and that's kind of what I want to focus on, and I don't want to get in the weeds of politics today, and we're not going to do that. I listened to almost all of it, and something that I noticed when I listened was that he did a really good job, if like in the speaking part in this message, as far as he put together exactly what he wanted to say. If you got a chance to listen to it, again, you may not like it or not, but something he did was you listened and you go, this was just not mincing words. He got right to the point of where he saw our country was at and where he wanted to see it go. And so he didn't mince words, like he dove right in and he put that right out there for everybody to hear. And he knew, I think he knew, like he was going to have a captive audience in the rotunda that day. Plus people, in our nation, around the world, were going to be listening because they were wanting to know, right? Like, what is he going to say? And what is he going to do? And he knew that not everybody was going to agree with him, and he didn't care. For him, it wasn't about that. He wanted his audience to rally around him and to go where he wants to lead. Kind of in a nutshell, that's what he was trying to accomplish this week as a president. You don't have to agree with what he said, or you do, either way. But in watching him do that, I noticed that, he did what he did in that moment was something that, if you've ever been a coach, anybody ever coached ball teams or anything like that, right? Yeah, okay. Anybody been a parent? Had your kids not do what you wanted them to? So you had to address that, right? How is it that we didn't hardly get any hands on that one? And I know that most all of you have been or are still parents in this room. Okay, but that's okay. I'm not going to change that. And every president that has come before him did essentially the same thing. And it was, I see it like this, you have a message that you want to tell someone, you have a captive audience, and they may or may not agree with what you're about to tell them. You ever had your kids not agree with what you were about to tell them? And you knew they're not going to necessarily want to do what you were about to tell them to either do or correct and do something different. And yet you still told them that, because in your heart of hearts that if they will listen and they will embrace and rally around what you're communicating to them, that the outcome is going to tend to go better for them. Do I have to unpack that anymore? Right? As parents. But, even that movie I talked about last week, the Bad News Bears, and Walter Matthau is the coach of the Bad News Bears team. And if you know Walter Matthau, he's kind of a crotchety old man style of acting, and he brings that into coaching the team. But that's exactly what he does. That's exactly what a lot of great leaders, and even not so great leaders, have done when they try to communicate with the people that they want to rally around and go with them. Do you know that Jesus did the same thing? Now, I'm not putting the president Jesus on the same right? I'm not doing that. Please don't hear that. If you read the Gospels and you listen to how Jesus preached, he did very much the same thing. Like Jesus would be in a crowd of people and he would say to them, "You have heard it said." Does that sound familiar, right? And he would unpack a reality of how they saw their faith and their life in the world. And then he would come around and he would say, "But I tell you," and so he would paint a different picture and say, "This is the better life, and this is the life you can have if you will believe and follow and trust in me. It'll go better for you if you will." Like, that's the better outcome. If you'll rally around and follow me, it'll bring about the good life in my Father's kingdom. And so what he was teaching really hasn't changed for 2,000 years. It's the eternal truth that just keeps marching with us as we go day after day, year after year. And so here at New Hope, we have a challenge to rise up to. And again, like, this is the challenge that every Christian has to rise up to. But last Sunday and this Sunday, I'm really kind of unpacking the vision that we have here at New Hope called Rising Up, and what does that mean, and what does it sort of look like, and how will that impact us as a church. And so if you're with us today, maybe for the first time, welcome. We're glad that you're here. But I just want you to know that that's kind of what I'm following up, giving part 2 of this series that I'm in. And so when I think about what Jesus was wanting the church to do, it puts a picture in my head, and that picture is something I want to share with us today for our church. And at New Hope, we envision every member being a dedicated Christian who is growing in their knowledge of Christ through the Scriptures, and number 2, sharing their understanding of the good news of Jesus Christ with the world. Growing in your faith in Christ and sharing that faith with the world. In a nutshell, it's like saying, we know and talk about Jesus. And I know Jesus is not always a popular person to talk about in the world, but if we're followers of Jesus, we got to talk about Jesus at times, right? Where we get opportunities to do that. That's just part of being a follower of his. That's what he wanted us to do. And I, last Sunday, had promised you that I would give you some more details, and kind of what that maybe looks like for here, and what we're going to really sort of lean into and focus on. And so I want to honor my promise, and that's what I want to begin to unpack a little bit more deeply this morning. So I believe that it's a picture that has 5 little pieces to it, and they're going to go pretty quick here because they're not super complicated. Number 1 is this, and we're going to put them up on the screen here for you today. So I think that's last week. That's not for today. But anyways, so just so bear with me. So here it is. So look at me, not the screen. Sorry, I'm not better looking I'm sorry. That's the good as the jokes get today. So number 1 is this. It's in engaging in relationships with people who may not know who Jesus is. They may not want to know who Jesus is, or even have heard that Jesus is even a thing, right? But it's engaging in relationships with those folks in the hope of influencing them to trust in Christ with their life. Engaging in relationships with people that has a purpose to it. And number 2, it's praying with courage and holy boldness as we anticipate God to do great works, since he is a miracle-working God. And so it's praying with spiritual power and hope. And quite often, I would say it's not just hey, I'll be praying for you. That's awesome, and you should do that. But what if you stopped and said, hey, can I pray with you right now? And just stop and pray. Those types of things, right? But anticipating that when I pray, that God's actually, if I'm praying with the sense that God has the power to answer this prayer, am I praying with an anticipation? Not like a hope, like a whimsical hope. Oh, I hope he does. But no, in the name of Jesus, I believe you can do this. I'm praying with hope that you will do this. And that's why I'm praying and presenting this need of this person who is dear to you and dear to me before your throne. Approach the throne by grace with an air of confidence and the power of God when you pray. That's part of it. And the third part is this. I think this is a fun one. Man, it's inviting the people to come to church with you, right? Inviting people to come to fun events. Super Bowl, plug. I shamelessly will plug stuff. It's all good. But inviting people to come and experience the good things that happen and are part of the family of God. Even if they're not a part of the family of God, that's okay, that's cool. But invite them to come along and have some fun with me. Because I promise you, when the people of God gather together, the Spirit of God is amongst them, and good things can happen for the kingdom when we get together. So we invite people to be a part of things that are happening. And then the fourth one is this. It's discipling people with passion and patience. Do you realize that discipleship is not a 5K? Discipleship is a marathon. It really is. It takes a long time to go through discipleship. So, man, going that journey with passion and with patience. Because it doesn't always go like you think or you hope it will. But you do it anyways. And then here's the fifth part of this, which is repeating or multiplying, right? So so Sean disciples Jackson. Jackson is growing in his understanding of who Christ is and his Christian faith. As he's getting he's grabbing a hold of it, God gives him the opportunity to interact with Drew. And so now he starts to pour time into discipling Drew. Well, Sean's not spending as much time with Jackson anymore because Jackson's learning to feed, if you will, on the Word of God, more of himself by himself, but he's still staying in touch and helping him. But now Sean is freed up, and now he's turning around and he's discipling Eli. And Drew's starting to stand on his own. So now Drew turns around and he starts discipling Josh. And now all of this is happening. And then Eli and Josh start discipling somebody else while Drew disciples somebody else. And Jackson's discipling someone else. And Sean is discipling somebody else. And all of a sudden you go from just 1 + 1 + 1 to I'm not going to sing. It's called exponential. It's multiplication, right? That's the law of mathematics. That's the way it works. And in the church it grows, and it grows exponentially when we're all doing our work. I got to confess, I ripped this idea. I didn't come up with this on my own. I mean, yeah, it's like a Jesus thing, and I totally get that, but I totally ripped it off the 12 apostles. 100%. Like, I'll confess it. And the disciples, the early church, in churches throughout history people have been doing this, right? Like, the people that did that and then poured into you, and then you poured into somebody else, like, I'm ripping this off of you. I'm just borrowing it, right? Yeah, for sure, 100%. But it's okay. When I look at this, I see our job is to keep the party going. Keep the party going, right? Because really being a follower of Jesus, it should be fun, and it is fun. I mean, it's tough at times, and it's a lot of hard work in it, 100%. But it's fun. It really is. And I think our job is to keep the party going. And so I really feel that for us, now is the time that for us to lean into this a bit more deeply than we have before. And I was thinking about this, and two important reasons came to mind, and I want to share them with you. One is this, because Jesus gave disciples what we know as the Great Commission. He said, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the what? Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you, and surely I'll be with you always to the end of the age. So that's typically what we understand as the Great Commission. It's the job of the church. So if Jesus said this is what you're supposed to do, and I don't do that, that's considered a sin of omission. That is an unethical lifestyle. So being unethical is living a life of sin. Well, Pastor, I don't know that I would put it in that category. It's like I don't love Jesus. I know you love Jesus. And it's because you respect and you revere him in that love that you want to make the ethical right choice to be obedient to Christ, who has saved you and is Lord of your life. Right? That's part of being a follower of Jesus, being in the church. So there's something about, wow, the world needs Jesus. And it is the church's job to share Jesus with the world and to partner with Jesus in the world. So I'm going to have to talk about Jesus in the world, and I'm going to have to do some Jesus-type ministry and serving people that need Jesus in the world. I'm going to have to invest in some people that need Jesus in the world. But I don't like those people. And that's a fair statement. But you still got to do the work, right? All right. I know it's sort of black and white, but I think there is truth to it, and I don't think the church can run from it. So we have to just look at it and say, help me, Jesus, process this and come in line with you. And the second is this, and our church's story over the past 7 years has brought us to this point in time. Now, if you've been here for 7+ years, walk with me on this, because you know this firsthand. If you haven't, still walk with me. And I'm going to give you a quick recap of what we've experienced over the past 7 to 10 years as a church. So it was about 7 years or so ago that New Hope went through a church split. So I'm going to tell the details the best as I understand them, and that's just part of the chapters, I guess, here. So we went through a church split. We lost our ministry staff, leaders, and about 40% of the congregation of the church. One fell swoop, I think, as I understand it, kind of gone. That put the church in a position to having to figure out who's going to do what, how do we do this, how do we have to keep this thing going. And so when I came on board, I've been here for 5 years now. So when I came on board, we spent the first year largely just trying to do healing, because you're broken. And I came in with some brokenness. You guys have brokenness. And so we've been working together and healing together. And then guess what hit in 2020? Anybody remember? COVID hit in 2020. First year on the jobs. Year 2, guess what? Lead the church through COVID. That'll be fun, they say. Let's do it. So that's what we went through. And it was a struggle. It was hard. And so like many churches, we saw some other folks, part ways with us. And there was conflict on that. And, and that's just, it is what it is. And so we were going through that, and we said, you know what? We realized we're not the same church that we used to be, and we can't pretend to be who we were because it's just not the reality. So who are we now, and what does it look like for us to go forward, and where in the world exactly are we going, and how are we going to get there, and who's going to do what, and can we even get there with what we have and the way we're structured and all that kind of stuff? And so we spent about 2 years trying to work that stuff out and better understand our identity and developing new leaders. And during COVID, great business move, started COVID and we started childcare, and it just was set up for hurdles from the beginning, and it didn't work. And so we had to make the tough decision, it's like, okay, we need to just close this chapter, and that's what we did. And we've been recover from that, and you guys have helped us do that, and so thank you. And so here we are, we're in a season now where we're have built up our systems and structure that we think can scale for growth, and we are confident, as we have always been, that God still has plans for this church. He wants to grow his kingdom through here for people of all ages, and we want to be ready for that, and we want to have everything in the right places and develop leaders and disciple people to be ready for whatever the Lord needs from us, not just in the future, but right now. And so you guys have been working hard. We all have been working hard over the last couple of years. And I'm proud of you. And I can't think of a different group of people that I would want to do this with than you. I love you guys. I'm glad to be in this spot with you guys right now, because this is a good spot. And I say it's a good spot not because we're done, but because, listen to me, if you're listening, as the teacher would say, eyes on me. Just look at me for a second. We have learned that God heals brokenness. And we have learned God can redeem. We've seen God restore. We have seen God raise up people and put a calling on people's lives to do ministry where He needed them. We have seen God provide resources when we needed them and we didn't know where it was going to come from. We've seen God do miracles. We have seen God be faithful. We've never wavered from being a people that held on to hope, believing that as we work together, God will use this body of believers for greatness for His kingdom, because that's what He's called us to be a part of. And we've held together and locked arms, and we've prayed together, and we have cried together, and we have walked together, and we have searched God by visioning, what are you wanting? Where are we going? And we made strategic hires between Carrie and Jessica for worship and for our youth and family ministries in that vein to set the pieces in place and go. And say, we know we don't have everything we need, but you know what? We have Jesus, and we have faith. And we believe that He's not done. So we have hope. And we're going to give whatever is required so that more people can know Jesus and help their children grow to know that Jesus is really the answer for their life, even though the world's going to promise them other stuff. Meth and all the other substances of abuse and social media and all these other things that promise fixes and to be able to give you a sense of wholeness, man, that stuff's just empty. The answer is Jesus. So this is why He will continue to be the subject and the foundation of who we are and what we do and why we do what we do here. And with that comes us rising up to the task. I feel we are in such a time as this to seize an opportunity that was not there 7 years ago like it is today. Just let that sink in for a moment, if you've been here. I was sitting in an elder board meeting this past Tuesday, and I got the opportunity to be able to share with our elders this whole theme of rising up, and a lot of what I'm sharing with you today. And I talked about it, and their eyes glazed. No, they didn't. And they were listening, and I got to the end, and so I'm like, okay, I'm done. And about 3 of our elders then spoke up and blew me away with what they said. And they said it a little differently, but they all essentially said the same thing. They said, I've already been sensing that we're standing on the precipice of something great with God, that we're at a crossroad, that we've been building up to this moment of where we are right now. And I love it when the people around you say, you know what? I'm already where you're at. Not because I had to tell them, but because of spiritual discernment. And that was such a blessing for me to hear that from our elders. You ever heard of Henry Blackaby? In his study Experiencing God, you've heard me say it before, but he said, when you stand in a moment you call a crisis of belief, which in a part is where we stand, what you do next will say what you believe about God. I think he's right on the money with that. Now's the time to rise up to the challenge. Now, I don't have all the answers, but let me tell you what I know so far. A little bit more what that's going to look like for us. If you put the discipleship pathway image up on the screen this morning. All right. So if you haven't seen this before here at New Hope, this is what we call our discipleship pathway. And so this is a 4-part pathway. It's a journey that we encourage everyone to take. And I'm going to lean into that this morning, that we believe in different size spaces, God is at work. And we grow as followers of Jesus as we walk this pathway here at New Hope. And it's a reflection of our values and our culture here as a church. So what we want to do this year is we want to work smarter, not harder. Yes. Anybody a fan of that? Anybody have busy schedules? Lots going on. So the last thing we want to do is really to add more stuff and make it even busier. Let's take what we do, let's make it even better. Okay? Work smarter, not harder mentality. So the first thing is this. So on Sunday services here, this is where we're at today, right? We're celebrating God together. So a couple of things that you're going to notice through this year is we're going to lean into a greater role of prayer and praying for each other in the church during our services than we have historically done. And that's going to look a little bit different weeks and so on and so forth, but we're going to lean more heavily into that. Also, you're going to hear me lean more heavily into teaching from the Gospels, the New Testament, because I want to tap into those stories where Jesus was discipling, where the disciples were pouring into others. I want to tap into and lean into a lot of the teachings in the New Testament, right, where we have Paul teaching in Peter and John, teaching about really what we say the doctrines of the Christian faith. What do you believe as a Christian? Do you know? If somebody asked you, what do you believe as a Christian? What would you tell them? Where would you even start, right? Like being able to intelligently learn how to unpack that and to share that is an important part of being a follower of Jesus. And so we want to help do that. So I want to use this moment as a time to help that process, if you will. So those are a couple things that you're going to see on Sundays. Now, serve and share events, which is when we go out in the community. That's probably around 25 people, and we go and we serve the community, and we share our experiences with one another. And we've typically gone out, we work, right? So we go out and volunteer, and we serve in the community, and then we maybe have lunch together and just talk about and share our faith and encourage one another as we afterwards. So this year, we're going to tweak that a little bit to help make more room for the sharing of the gospel as we go and we serve in the community. And then praying for the people as we have opportunity, as we're serving with them. Come alongside them as we minister to them, to stop and to pray for them. And say, how can I pray for you? Okay. I could spend 5 minutes unpacking that, but I'm not going to. So the sharing of the gospel and praying for people that we minister to. You get a little bit smaller into small groups, right? So you've got like 10 to 12 people or so in your group. And the other thing is classes, which is the one thing I know I said I wouldn't add more, but we want to provide some opportunities for you to be able to gather with a smaller group of people and to learn this Christian faith. So our small groups, we're going to work with our small groups that we have to help us grow in certain areas of sharing Jesus, right? Of learning how to minister to folks and learning what we believe as followers of Jesus. You guys have a good foundation. Most all of you do. And I'm not sliding that in any way. But we always have room to grow, right? So let's dig in and we'll keep on growing together. That's kind of the main goal of it. And would you know, as luck would have it, it's not luck, this small group church-wide series we're doing, A Loving Church, is a first step out of the door of this journey of helping us learn how to always be aware of how well we're presenting God's love to the people around us, right? Because that's a part of being the church here and out in the world. So I really hope that you can be a part of that. The fourth part is, this is a little bit newer one. And we're going to roll this out this year, okay? So this is what we call a stable few, and it's having stable people, like 1 or 2 people coming alongside you. Some of you are a little older school. You know the term accountability partner, right? But that's largely what it is. So what do? You read the Bible together. You pray together, not just for each other, but you're praying for people that you want to know Jesus. And you're holding each other accountable. You're helping each other in your walk of following Jesus and being the best person that you can be for Christ and for the kingdom. this is the path that we're going to intentionally walk this year. And my job and our elders' job is to help each of you and myself to walk this path this year. To be totally honest, all of this does not come easy for me. I know, you're the pastor. You're supposed to be able to do all these things. Yeah, I get it. This is not all easy. This is daunting even for me. Okay? So I get it. Like if you hear this and you're like, hoo hoo hoo, I'm getting a little antsy here. I don't know. Like I get that because I'm in that boat too. But this is not about us. And it can't be about us. This is greater than us. And that's why I say we have to rise up to this. Because it's not a natural thing that we, I think, really want to do. But it's something we have to rise up and do in the power of Christ. Because it is our calling from Christ. So my invitation to us all, like I say, even for myself, is that you would invest in this journey, that you invest in this discipleship pathway this year. My ask as well is that you will invest your family into this pathway. We have a lot of options to spend our time, a lot of different things we can do, places we can go, commitments we can have. I'm asking that this would be one of your top commitments for the year. I know it's a big ask. Go big or go home, right? Yes. Go big or go home. That this would be one of your top commitments this year. My ask is that you would ask God for help to rise up to the challenge of growing as a disciple of Christ and sharing His good news in the world. That you remember that Christ has called us to this journey. And that our story has led us up to this point in a way that has not been before. We stand in such a moment as this, for I think such an opportunity as this. And where it will take us, man, only the Lord knows. Like, I really don't know. 3 years from now, this place could be busting at the seams, and we just don't have enough room in this. Maybe. But you know what? That might not happen. You know what else might happen? It might be, though, that you are investing in people out in the world, and they're growing closer to Jesus. And they're impacting other people for Jesus, but they're never going to set foot in the doors of this church because this is just not where they're at. They're doing something else somewhere else, and they may be part of another church even somewhere else. They're doing ministry, right? But you're investing in people, and they're having a kingdom impact. And so the kingdom's growing. But it may not mean that the number of people sitting in this room just grows exponentially. Because remember, that's not why we're here. It's not about a building. It's about building the kingdom. And if we keep that in the forefront, rise up to that calling, great things are going to happen for the glory of God. That's my heart. That's what I want. Can we build it? Yes, we can. I love that. Love it. So here it is. I love when I do this and it works out this way. Sometimes I don't even know what's going to happen. But do you know one of the greatest first steps you can take on this journey to rise up? And I end with this. Be a part of a small group for a loving church. Be a part of that. 3 weeks of meeting. 4th week, you come and have lunch, and we're going to unpack what we learned, and we're going to start the process of how do we take that and shift where we need to become an even better loving church. I mean, this is one of the loving churches I've ever seen in my whole life. But I think because it's our greatest value, we have to protect it. And we have to keep building on that, because that's where I think our greatest effectiveness is going to lie. So be a part of that the week of February 2nd, 9th, and 16th. And then February 23rd, we're going to gather, have lunch, we're going to unpack it, debrief, and we're going to see what we learned. And then our elder board, they get the fun part of working forward a plan to take what you guys have spoken and let's become an even healthier, loving church to each other and to this community, and see how that helps us grow the kingdom even better. Amen. Please be a part. You can scan the QR code on the screen, and that'll take you to sign up so you can register and pick the group that you want. So please do that before you leave today. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to do that. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those the best I can. All right. So our worship team, would you guys come on up? And everybody, if you would stand, let the blood flow to your legs again this morning.